What's going on, guys? It's been a while since I've done a YouTube video, and the truth is, I've just graduated from university. I've gotten my BA in sociology, and like about a week after I got, now I'm on my working on my master's in psychology, with concentration in marriage and family therapy, or at least like counseling. It's a non-licensed track, but so yeah, I've been really busy with a lot of stuff. Anyways, today's topic is gonna be the thing that I promised on my Instagram profile, which is talking about how females today have more privilege than men do as a class, right? And when I say more privilege, that's why I use more privilege, to not to say that females have all the privileges and males have no privileges. I'm not one of those people who thinks in sort of like black or white, especially when it comes to these complex social issues and phenomena, because I don't really see how that's going to be useful and helpful to anyone, including myself, right? And I see it as my job, in a sense, to help you guys to understand, like, okay, why is it that I think the things that I think, and how do those things help you as well? So, in other words, my goal is to literally help you guys to be informed. But one of the things that I promised to talk about was in terms of marriage, right? Now that is something that I will be studying currently in grad school, is the institution of marriage. I'm probably not going to go too deeply into it, as I will maybe like an outside reading or in maybe a PhD work, hopefully, if God wills it. So marriage is an institution that is designed for the preservation of children and for the preservation of society in general, right? Historically, wives and children were seen as belonging to the husband, right? So that means that the wife and her children belong to the husband, but there was a caveat to that, right? This meant that in exchange for her total and willful submission to him, he is to protect her with his income. He is to protect her and provide for her with his income, with his resources, with his time, with his emotional and financial investment into her and into the family, right? It was the woman's job to be the emotional bedrock for the family. So what that means is women were expected to be the nurturers, to care for the children, and to support her husband emotionally, so that way he can continue to provide for her financially, whether that looked like in words of affirmation or in sexual intercourse or in any of that other stuff. That is how she demonstrated her loyalty and emotional support to him. And the husband did that by bringing home the money, by keeping a roof over her head, by doing all these things. So in other words, those two are necessary basic components in order to maintain that marriage relationship, and to also translate that into the children, right? So that's how it works in a scientific sense. Now, a lot of people might say, well, that's not, how it always works in real life. I'm not talking about like that necessarily. I'm talking about the ideal, the ideal way of looking at it in a scientific sense. And this is obviously a general rule. This is not necessarily a specialized or technical rule. But ever since now, starting from like the 1960s and the 1970s, when feminism kicked into full gear, females were starting to become more emboldened, especially by outside forces, like whether it's feminist organizations or the federal government and just the government in general. These institutions have really allowed women to express themselves more freely, which part of it, that's a good thing for you to be able to understand your own humanity and to allow others to accept and understand it as well. Um, but there was a caveat that came with that as well, which a lot of women felt too emboldened by the court system to the point where now they were marrying their husbands, trapping them in the sense of getting pregnant by them and forcing the man to pay child support without ever allowing him to see the child. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't even take the time to think about because, or if they do think about it, they blame it on the man because, hey, the man is privileged anyways, and so if he didn't want to support a child, he shouldn't have done that. But they fail to consider multiple factors into that. So the only argument that they have is males have privilege, which, do males have privilege? Yes, males do have privilege. But that is not the only explanation for that argument. The other explanation is the fact that females also have privilege. And in about like 80% of divorce cases, women are the ones who initiate the divorces. Yeah, I think it's like about 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women. So that tells me that there is an imbalance, right? And that it's not necessarily the men who are using their privilege to get rid of women. It is actually females who are using their privilege that is given to them by the courts in order, and by the law, the legal system, in order for them to strip their husbands of their rights and to completely get rid of them, because by and large, this is actually pretty well documented social scientifically, is that the courts do favor women the majority of the time. And that is in large part due to a female-centric view of child care and, like the well-being of children, right? So, in other words, the female viewpoint is viewed as more valid when it comes to custody cases than when it comes to, like as opposed to the male viewpoint, right? Because there is that inundation in our culture that masculinity is inherently toxic, which obviously that is not true, but that is like the cultural propaganda, is that masculinity is inherently toxic, all toxic by the way, and femininity is inherently all, good. So, but like I said, reality is much more complicated than that, and femininity can be toxic and good. It's inherently good, but it can be used for bad. The same thing with masculinity. It's inherently good, but it can be used for bad. So it's not necessarily the feminine or the masculine essence that is the problem. The problem is people inserting these arbitrary ideologies in order to push for female supremacy. And that has been done by large part by feminist organizations. Feminist organizations actually have far more influence than you guys think, far more influence, especially at the university level and in the popular media. Men's organizations, if they even do exist, are usually on the fringes of society. Not because they are bad, but it's because society has not really yet caught up to the fact that men also are being screwed over systematically, and they are not we're not this untouchable class that nobody can do anything to us, and we have all of these plethora of privileges, whereas women are these eternal victims that constantly require men's help, but then when men offer that help, they are accused of being paternalistic towards females. So a lot of these things are interesting social phenomena, and so that does show, at least from just this video, I'll do more videos later on, that females do actually have privileges that are instilled inside the American legal system, and just in a society, in our society in general. Females are seen to have the more valid viewpoint, especially when it comes to child care and just care in general, as opposed to men. And so courts are more swayed to give custody to females than they are to males. In fact, there is a book that I'm reading right now. I will let you know the name of the book later on. That it's done by a psychologist who explains exactly what's going on, and she's not the only one who has done that. So, but I'll let you guys know the name of the book next time, or maybe I'll just put it in the link in the description link below. So, hopefully this video was good for you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.